Hi everyone, welcome back. I'm going to be doing another cake video today, and this time it's going to be a little bit more of the behind the scenes work that you do before you decorate a cake. So we'll be talking about how to properly mix and bake it so you get a nice firm cake that doesn't crumble, and then I'll be talking about how to shave off the top part of the cake, and that will allow us for a nice even frosting, and so that the cake won't look too domed at the end. And then third, we're going to talk about how to keep the cake fresher for longer and how to keep it moist and so it doesn't dry out. Today we'll be making my favorite kind of cake, chocolate cake, and it is a recipe that I've used so many times, and everyone that I've baked for says they love it and that it's one of their favorite chocolate cakes. So that's really encouraging. So we'll be using that recipe today. I will put the exact recipe with all the exact measurements down in the comments below, and I'll also list some of the tools I used so you can hopefully find or use some of your own. The first step to making this cake is combining our dark chocolate, our cocoa powder, and our oil. So what you want to do is take a bar. You can find any bar you want. This recipe calls for 6 ounces, well actually I'm doubling the recipe, so it calls for 12 ounces of bittersweet chocolate bar. So that just means anywhere between 60 and 70%, whatever, however much chocolate you like. So what I do to make it melt faster in the microwave is you just take it and you just break it into pieces. And that way it'll melt quicker in the microwave and you don't have to let it sit for as long. Okay, what we do next, after we've broken up all of our chocolate, we dump it into a microwave safe bowl, and then we also add in our cocoa powder and our oil. And then once this is all together, we will put it in the microwave for 1 minute, and then we will stir it, and then put it back in the microwave for another minute, stir it, and then from there on out, we'll only do 30-second intervals so we don't burn the chocolate. And you want to do that until everything is mixed together and it's nice, it's one big nice mixture. Okay, so as you can see, our chocolate bar, cocoa powder, oil mixture has all become homogeneous in one mixture, and now we're going to set it aside and let it cool as we work on the other part of our batter. This next part of the batter is combining the flour with the baking soda, baking powder, and salt, all which I measured into this cup. And all you have to do is mix it in a little bit, whisk it, just so that there's no clumps of baking powder, baking soda, or salt. They'll get stuck in the mixture once we add it to the wet ingredients later. Okay, we've now come to the last part where we will combine these last few ingredients and then we'll put everything together to make the cake batter. So first, what we have to do is take our eggs, put them in the bowl, and then we will put this on the standard mixer back there with about a tablespoon of vanilla, and we'll mix it all together. And then we'll add the sugar after that until it becomes one mixture. Okay, the eggs and vanilla is mixed. It looks gorgeous. But now we'll add the sugar, and then we'll put it back on the standard mixer to let it all mix in. Now you could use a hand mixer or a whisk, but this is just so much easier and requires so much less manpower. Okay, now that our egg, sugar, and vanilla has all been mixed together, we are going to add our chocolate mixture, our cooled chocolate mixture, into the egg mixture. And the reason you want it to be cooled is because you don't want the oil and the chocolate to be too hot where it might start cooking the eggs and then you get weird lumps in your cake. That would be bad. So just pour it all in there, and yeah, it might get messy, but just dump it in, and then we'll put it on the standard mixer and mix till all combined. Okay, our chocolate and egg mixtures are mixed together, and now I'm going to put this back on the standard mixer and alternate the flour and the milk in. So we'll start with about 1/3 of the flour mixture going in, then we'll put in half of this milk, and then we'll mix in the second 1/3 of the flour and then the rest of the milk, and then we'll put in the last part of the flour. In this way, we'll make sure that there's no flour pockets or flour chunks inside the cake itself. And now before we add the last part of the flour, we're going to scrape down the sides to make sure all of the stuff on the bottom is able to get mixed in with the rest of the ingredients. Okay, the last part of the flour is going in. Okay, Okay, we have our batter all ready and our pans. And so what I like to do is use a scale to get the same amount of batter into each pan, but you can just eyeball it if you like. So we will put it on, zero out the scale, and start filling. Okay, our cakes are all filled, and one thing I like to do before putting them in the oven is to pound them to get all those top air bubbles out. That way there's less big gaping holes inside the cake when you're finished. Now that all of our cakes are filled, I'm just going to put them in the oven at 350, and we'll start them with about 50 minutes, and then depending on how much they bake, we'll either add a few minutes or take them out when they're done. So what you want to do to take your cakes out of your pans, once they've cooled for about 20 minutes so the pans aren't too hot to touch, you take an offset spatula or thin knife, and you just slowly go around the corner, or going around the edges until it's all freed up, and then you're just gonna kind of bounce it to try and like see if it'll all come off. And then once it's loose, you take a rack and flip it upside down, and it should come off evenly. And then you can also take your parchment or wax paper off as well. And then take another rack, put it on top, and flip it. And now it can continue cooling this way, and it'll actually cool much quicker since it's out of the hot pan. Okay, these cakes are cooled down. I actually put them in the fridge to help them speed up the process and to help them be firmer for this next part. So what we're going to do is we're going to take the cake, put it on a Lazy Susan, and what we're going to do is we're going to trim off this top dome part so that when we frost the cake, it'll be much easier and flatter, and so at the end we don't have a little dome at the top and that the sides don't fall down when stacking the cake. So to do this, you can take a ruler. This is actually a ruler with indents on the sides. It's actually for like helping make cool designs on the side of a cake when you're frosting it. But I just use this to measure how high I want to cut the cake. So for this, I think we're going to do, we'll cut 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I'm gonna cut up to 6 mark, and I'm just gonna make a slight indent or a slight cut into the side of the cake. It's not cutting all the way across, but just enough to leave a mark, as you can see here. And you want to also try and keep your knife flat so that one part isn't pointing down and the other up, because that would give you an uneven cut. Okay, once you've gone all the way around the cake, you will just continue to circle the cake and slowly bring the knife in. And I'm using actually a serrated bread knife because that seems to not crumble the cake as much, and it just seems to cut nicer. So now we have our top. You can just place it off to the side in a bowl if you'd like and eat it later. But now we have a flatter top, and we can fill in these smaller portions with icing if you'd like. So next we're going to make simple syrup, which is just 1 part sugar, 1 part water. So what we have here is a 1/2 cup of sugar and then a 1/2 cup of water. And what this does is first you have to boil it until all the sugar dissolves and it's completely gone and it's just a translucent liquid. And then once you're done with that, you just turn off the heat and let it cool down to about room temperature. And then once your cakes are cut and the domes are cut off, then we're going to drizzle this, we're gonna spoon it on, and this is what keeps the cakes moist and fresh for even longer. So the cake can sit for like 3 days if you have to make it a few days prior to a party or an event, and when you eat it those few days later, it'll taste like it was just made earlier that day or the day before. So it's actually an amazing trick that allows you to keep your cake fresher, tasting fresher for longer. Okay, now that our cakes have been cut and the simple syrup is made and cooled, we're going to take our cake and our simple syrup, and we're just going to spoon it onto the top. And this again will keep in the moisture and make sure it doesn't go dry if you have to save it for the next few days. Another way to preserve cake, if it's going to be like a week until you're ready to serve it, you can make the cakes ahead of time and put it in the freezer. And then once you're ready to decorate and it's closer to the event, you can take them out, let them thaw, in the fridge and then on the counter, and then you can just put the simple syrup on and your frosting and decorations, and it'll be ready to go. Okay, and then you just want to add the simple syrup until the top is mostly covered, and then you can move on to the next. Okay, our cakes have soaked in the simple syrup and they are ready to start filling and stacking and decorating. This is the end of this video, but I will do a quick time lapse for you guys to show you guys how I fill my cakes and then what it looks like in the end. Thank you guys for watching. Okay, we have finished our cake. It is what I call a rustic chocolate cake. It needs a few more sprinkles, which I'll run to the store to get more of in a minute. But I just wanted to cover what we learned today. So we talked about more of the before, behind the scenes stuff that you don't normally see when you see a cake. So we talked about how to bake it and make it properly, how to make the cakes level after they're done baking so you get a more flat finished looking product. And third, how to keep things moist and fresher for longer, like adding simple syrup. I hope you guys enjoyed this video and I hope you have a great rest of your course.